Then, as he went out of the temple, one of his disciples said to him,
Teacher, see what manner of stones and what buildings are here.
Do you see these great buildings? Not one stone shall be left upon another that shall not be thrown down.
Now as he sat on the Mount of Olives opposite the temple, Peter, James, John, and Andrew asked him privately,
Tell us, when will these things be? And what will be the sign when all these things will be fulfilled?
And Jesus answering them began to say,
Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name, saying, I am he, and will deceive many. But when you hear of wars and rumors of wars, do not be troubled, for such things must happen, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there will be earthquakes in various places, and there will be famines and troubles. These are the beginnings of sorrows. But watch out for yourselves, for they will deliver you up to councils, and you will be beaten in the synagogues. You will be brought before rulers and kings for my sake, for a testimony to them. And the gospel must first be preached to all the nations. But when they arrest you and deliver you up, do not worry beforehand or premeditate what you will speak. But whatever is given you in that hour, speak that, for it is not you who speak, but the Holy Spirit. Now brother will betray brother to death, and a father his child, and children will rise up against parents and cause them to be put to death. And you will be hated by all for my name's sake. But he who endures to the end shall be saved. So when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing where it ought not, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. Let him who is on the housetop not go down into the house, nor enter to take anything out of his house. And let him who is in the field not go back to get his clothes. But woe to those who are pregnant, and to those who are nursing babies in those days. And pray that your flight may not be in winter. For in those days there will be tribulation, such as has not been since the beginning of the creation which God created until this time, nor ever shall be. And unless the Lord had shortened those days, no flesh would be saved. But for the elect's sake, whom he chose, he shortened the days. Then if anyone says to you, Look, here is the Christ, or Look, he is there, do not believe it. For false Christs and false prophets will rise and show signs and wonders to deceive, if possible, even the elect. But take heed. See, I have told you all things beforehand. But in those days, after that tribulation, the sun will be darkened, and the moon will not give its light. The stars of heaven will fall, and the powers in the heavens will be shaken. Then they will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds with great power and glory. And then he will send his angels and gather together his elect from the four winds, from the farthest part of earth to the farthest part of heaven. Now learn this parable from the fig tree. When its branch has already become tender and puts forth leaves, you know that summer is near. So you also, when you see these things happening, know that it is near, at the doors. Assuredly, I say to you, this generation will by no means pass away till all these things take place. Heaven and earth will pass away, but my words will by no means pass away. But of that day and hour, no one knows, not even the angels in heaven, nor the Son, but only the Father. Take heed, watch, and pray, for you do not know when the time is. It is like a man going to a far country, who left his house and gave authority to his servants, and to each his work, and commanded the doorkeeper to watch. Watch, therefore, for you do not know when the master of the house is coming, in the evening, at midnight, at the crowing of the rooster, or in the morning, lest, coming suddenly, he find you sleeping. And what I say to you, I say to all. Watch.
After 2 days, it was the Passover and the Feast of Unleavened Bread. And the chief priests and the scribes sought how they might take him by trickery and put him to death.
Not during the feast, lest there be an uproar of the people.
And being in Bethany at the house of Simon the leper, as he sat at the table, a woman came having an alabaster flask of very costly oil of spikenard. Then she broke the flask and poured it on his head. But there were some who were indignant among themselves.
Why was this fragrant oil wasted? For it might have been sold for more than 300 denarii and given to the poor.
And they criticized her sharply.
Let her alone. Why do you trouble her? She has done a good work for me. For you have the poor with you always, and whenever you wish, you may do them good. But me you do not have always. She has done what she could. She has come beforehand to anoint my body for burial. Assuredly, I say to you, wherever this gospel is preached in the whole world, what this woman has done will also be told as a memorial to her.
Then Judas Iscariot, one of the 12, went to the chief priests to betray him to them. And when they heard it, they were glad and promised to give him money. So he sought how he might conveniently betray him. Now on the first day of unleavened bread, when they killed the Passover lamb, his disciples said to him,
"Where do you want us to go and prepare, that you may eat the Passover?"
And he sent out 2 of his disciples and said to them,
Go into the city, and a man will meet you carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him. Wherever he goes in, say to the master of the house, the teacher says, where is the guest room in which I may eat the Passover with my disciples? Then he will show you a large upper room, furnished and prepared. There, make ready for us."
So his disciples went out and came into the city and found it just as he had said to them, and they prepared the Passover. In the evening he came with the 12. Now as they sat and ate, Jesus said,
Assuredly, I say to you, one of you who eats with me will betray me.
And they began to be sorrowful and to say to him one by one,
Is it I?
Is it I?
It is one of the 12 who dips with me in the dish. The Son of Man indeed goes just as it is written of him. But woe to that man by whom the Son of Man is betrayed. It would have been good for that man if he had never been born.
And as they were eating, Jesus took bread, blessed and broke it, and gave it to them.
Take, eat. This is my body.
Then he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they all drank from it.
This is my blood of the new covenant, which is shed for many. Assuredly, I say to you, I will no longer drink of the fruit of the vine until that day when I drink it new in the kingdom of God.
And when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives.
All of you will be made to stumble because of me this night. For it is written, I will strike the shepherd, and the sheep will be scattered. But after I have been raised, I will go before you to Galilee.
Even if all are made to stumble, yet I will not be.
Assuredly, I say to you that today, even this night, before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times.
But he spoke more vehemently.
If I have to die with you, I will not deny you.
And they all said likewise. Then they came to a place which was named Gethsemane, and he said to his disciples,
Sit here while I pray.
And he took Peter, James, and John with him, and he began to be troubled and deeply distressed.
My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to death. Stay here and watch.
He went a little farther and fell on the ground and prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him.
Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Take this cup away from me. Nevertheless, not what I will, but what you will.
Then he came and found them sleeping.
Simon, are you sleeping? Could you not watch 1 hour? Watch and pray, lest you enter into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Again he went away and prayed and spoke the same words. And when he returned, he found them asleep again, for their eyes were heavy, and they did not know what to answer him. Then he came the 3rd time and said to them,
Are you still sleeping and resting? It is enough. The hour has come. Behold, the Son of Man is being betrayed into the hands of sinners. Rise, let us be going. See, my betrayer is at hand.
And immediately, while he was still speaking, Judas, one of the 12, with a great multitude with swords and clubs, came from the chief priests and the scribes and the elders. Now his betrayer had given them a signal.
Whomever I kiss, he is the one. Seize him and lead him away safely.
As soon as he had come, immediately he went up to him
Rabbi, Rabbi.
and kissed him. Then they laid their hands on him and took him. And one of those who stood by drew his sword and struck the servant of the high priest and cut off his ear. Then Jesus answered and said to them,
Have you come out as against a robber, with swords and clubs to take me? I was daily with you in the temple teaching, and you did not seize me. But the scriptures must be fulfilled.
Then they all forsook him and fled. Now, a certain young man followed him, having a linen cloth thrown around his naked body. And the young men laid hold of him, and he left the linen cloth and fled from them naked. And they led Jesus away to the high priest, and with him were assembled all the chief priests, the elders, and the scribes. But Peter followed him at a distance, right into the courtyard of the high priest, and he sat with the servants and warmed himself at the fire. Now the chief priests and all the council sought testimony against Jesus to put him to death, but found none. For many bore false witness against him, but their testimonies did not agree. Then some rose up and bore false witness against him.
We heard him say, "I will destroy this temple made with hands, and within 3 days I will build another made without hands."
But not even then did their testimony agree. And the high priest stood up in the midst and asked Jesus,
Do you answer nothing? What is it these men testify against you?
But he kept silent and answered nothing. Again the high priest asked him,
Are you the Christ, the Son of the Blessed?
I am. And you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of the power and coming with the clouds of heaven.
Then the high priest tore his clothes.
What further need do we have of witnesses? You have heard the blasphemy. What do you think?
And they all condemned him to be deserving of death. Then some began to spit on him, and to blindfold him, and to beat him.
Prophesy.
And the officers struck him with the palms of their hands. Now as Peter was below in the courtyard, one of the servant girls of the high priest came. And when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked at him and said,
You also were with Jesus of Nazareth.
I neither know nor understand what you are saying.
And he went out on the porch, and a rooster crowed. And the servant girl saw him again, and began to say to those who stood by,
This is one of them.
But he denied it again. And a little later, those who stood by said to Peter again,
Surely you are one of them, for you are a Galilean and your speech shows it.
Then he began to curse and swear.
I do not know this man of whom you speak.
A second time, the rooster crowed. Then Peter called to mind the word that Jesus had said to him.
Before the rooster crows twice, you will deny me 3 times.
And when he thought about it, he wept.